there is a separatist alliance in the Scottish Parliament and it covers every party, SNP, Conservatives, the lot. Let's see what it's all about.
Presiding Officer, this government also recognises the crucial role of childcare in helping parents to return to work, benefiting not just them, but the wider economy. The Scottish Government has expanded ELC to 1140 hours a year for all 3- and 4-year-olds and around a quarter of all 2-year-olds. I am pleased to announce we will go further. Firstly, we will provide funding in 6 early adopter council areas to increase access to childcare from 9 months old through to the end of primary school. Secondly, we will accelerate the next phase in our expansion of childcare for families with 2-year-olds, reaching thousands more families.
So it used to be that 3- and 4-year-olds went to nursery just in the morning or the afternoon. Then the SNP changed it so they can go to nursery in the morning and the afternoon. They now want to go down to 2-year-olds going to nursery in the morning and the afternoon. In fact, ultimately, they want to go down to children from 9 months old, babies from 9 months old in state childcare, basically all day. They also want wraparound care around school. So as well as going to primary school, children can go earlier and stay later in the day. I mean, the mission of the Scottish Government is clear. The mission is to separate mums from their children at the earliest possible stage for as long as possible. It's what I call the ABM approach to childcare. ABM, anyone but mum. It doesn't matter who's looking after children as long as it's not mum. If it's dad, well, that's sort of quite good because that's progressive. If it's in a state childcare facility, then that's just wonderful. I mean, just doesn't matter. Anyone as long as it's not mum. ABM. Now, why do they do that? Well, Humza Yousaf explained a bit already, because these mums need to get back to work. They need to be contributing to the economy. I mean, this could apply to dads as well, but basically normally it would be mums this would be applying to, because Humza Yousaf and the Scottish Government think that contributing to the economy and paying a bit of tax is more important to mums than caring and loving for their own children. Now, Humza Yousaf says it helps the economy. In other words, it's best for the state if mums are working instead of nurturing and caring for their own children. He also thinks it's best for mums, because the Scottish Government assumes, along with all the other parties, that basically every mum is just desperate to hand over their children at the earliest possible stage for as long as possible so they can get away from them and do something more useful or something more fun instead. So let's hear the Conservative response to the SNP Green Government's plan.
In addition, on this side of the chamber, we welcome the commitment to the rollout of childcare from 9 months in line with the proposals of the UK Government that were announced in the last budget.
So that's why I say there's a separatist alliance. Every Holyrood party has the goal of separating mums from their children at the earliest possible stage for as long as possible. ABM. They want children to be looked after by anyone but mum. Now, Humza Yousaf says it's the best for the state, best for mums. Now, if Nicola Sturgeon had still been in charge, the line would always have been, it's also best for children. It gives children the best start in life. Because being with your mum, one-to-one attention from the person who loves you the most, no, that's not the best start for children. Being in state childcare is the best start for children. And the UK Conservative Government absolutely agrees. That's what they say. They say being in state childcare is the best possible start for children. Now, most mums actually disagree. They would prefer to spend more time with their children. Most mums are not thinking, if only I could get away from my kids for longer, that would be really great. Most mums tend to think, actually, I would prefer to spend more time with my children, but I need to work. I need to go to work. Part of the reason for that is now the price of houses is geared towards twin income families. So the government pressurises families into a twin income model. House prices reflect that. And then all families feel under pressure to have both parents working. Now, who didn't Humza Yousaf mention? He didn't mention children. Now, I believe this policy will harm children. Now, there is research that shows in the short term, if children go to nursery more when they're younger, by the time they're, say, age 5, that they're a bit better with some cognitive tasks. They've learned a bit more sort of on the academic side, very rudimentary things. But the whole academic establishment, of course, what's their ideology? Their ideology is that childcare is good and mums being with their children, well, we need to minimise that because of their sort of feminist dogma, which I'll come on to later. So all academic research conducted in this area, we need to be very cautious about interpreting it, because it's coming from institutions, from a whole world of thinking that says childcare is absolutely crucial to equality in the nation. Now, there is evidence sometimes where a mother is struggling in some way. Let's say, for example, you've got a mother who's a drug addict, say, then the child being in childcare might be better in those cases. But in the general case, I think that is not true, because there is significant evidence that shows there are long-term harms associated with long hours in childcare in the early years. Generally, the main effects are in terms of emotional and behavioural development. I'll put a link in the description. You can see one of the studies there. The other effect it has is it affects the quality of the connection between the child and the mother, and again that has effects throughout, maybe throughout the whole life, even. And this book I'd recommend, Being There: Why Prioritising Motherhood in the First 3 Years Matters. Now that talks about lots and lots of evidence that supports what I'm saying there. In addition to the research evidence, just what's your observation? Over recent decades, as we've had what's been labelled generation childcare, children increasingly who spent less and less time with their own mother in their early years, how are things going in terms of the emotional and behavioural development of children in our society? Well, the answer to that is things are going badly. There are increasing problems in these areas, and I believe, and there's evidence to indicate that could be related to the fact that children are spending less and less time with their own mum in their early years. Now, talking about childcare, obviously it's a sliding scale. There's a difference between going to nursery for a couple of times in the morning and being there all day at various different ages. So it's not a black and white thing, but overall the push is towards children away from mum for as long as possible, and that is not helpful. So what about dads, you might say? Some families, dads that does the looking after the young kids. I mean, okay, fine. I mean, personally, I believe that mums are sort of geared up to do that best. They've naturally got the qualities to do that. They bond with the children in a different way. And given the choice, the vast majority of families would choose that model. That mum would want to be with the kids for longer, while often dad would be earning money. Now, Scottish Family Party policy, what have we got to say about this? We want to give parents choice. We don't want to pressurise them into both parents working. We want to say, for example, if mum wants to be at home with the kids, dad's working, we want to try and make that choice available to people. So when the Scottish Government said 3 and 4 year olds, they can be in nursery morning and afternoon, our policy is, if a family says, well, we don't want morning and afternoon, morning's fine for us, then instead of the child going to nursery in the afternoon, they could take the cash in lieu, take the cost of that in lieu. State childcare for up to 2 year olds, just forget it. Apart from in exceptional circumstances, just don't do it. It's not helping children, and it's not really what I think most mums want. So how would we enable couples to be able to have, for example, dad working, mum at home with the kids, if that's what they want, for a period? Well, a transferable tax allowance for married people would make a massive difference, because the UK tax system is almost uniquely anti-family in that it taxes individuals rather than the household. So if we had a transferable tax allowance for married couples, it would encourage marriage, which is a good thing in itself. And also it would mean, if dad was working, mum was home with the kids, dad would get a lot more of his wages, it would pay a lot less tax, and therefore it would be a more sustainable and more viable option for families to choose. How would this be paid for? The Scottish Government is talking about, it's bragging about, spending £1 billion a year on childcare. They've been saying that for ages. We're going to spend an extra £1 billion a year on it. There is money there. They shouldn't all be going towards pressurising parents towards free state childcare. It could also be spent on enabling families to make their own choices to look after their own children. Right, so why is it that there's this separatist alliance? What drives them to think that separating children from their mum at the earliest possible age is just the obvious goal of any government? Well, the reason is basically that they're driven by feminist theory. And the feminist theory says that the responsibilities of mother hold women back from fulfilling their true potential. because motherhood, time spent with children, that results in inequality. It results in women earning less money over their whole careers. Therefore, it's a form of oppression. Therefore, women need liberating from the oppression of the responsibilities of motherhood. Now, actually, most mums don't want liberating from the responsibility of nurturing and bonding with their own children for substantial lengths of time, particularly during their early years. But you can see the same philosophy comes out with abortion as well. Women must be able to avoid the injustice of motherhood and having to be a carer, because that affects their career and it results in inequality. Therefore, women need to be able to choose to avoid motherhood. Therefore, abortion is a key thing in feminist ideology. But then similarly with childcare, women must be able to avoid the injustice of having to spend time with their own children, because that affects their career and it results in inequality. So it's two sides of the same coin, really. Children are seen as a threat to women's liberation, so therefore women need to be able to, is this the right word, with abortion, sort of get rid of them. With childcare, you have someone else look after them. That can't be the woman's responsibility, because that's not equality. Now, of course, what should be obvious watching this is that most women are not feminists. Most women don't call themselves feminists. And yet the Scottish Government and the UK Government and every party in the Scottish Parliament, they assume that feminists speak for women. They assume that feminists speak for mums. But they don't. So the Scottish Family Party, our policy is designed to give mums what they want and to give children what they need. And if you want this unique perspective presented in the Scottish Parliament, then you need to support us so we can take it there. And the best way to support us is by joining us or becoming a regular donor. And you can do that via the link below. Thanks for watching.